Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
You're watching YouTube Live or Facebook Live. There on the screen is Bill McKendry. He has a new book coming out in 2022. He's the founder of Do More Good. In fact, the book is called Do More Good. Bill, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
We're doing well. I wouldn't expect for you to say anything other than good if you're going to talk about Do More Good. I mean,
I got to be good, right?
Hey, thanks for hanging with us today. I love that you've put this book together. I did notice something on the press release as well that we can get into this in just a few. You filmed a commercial with Mother Teresa when you were in advertising, and you learned something from that. That's pretty epic right there, isn't it?
It is very epic. You know, I've actually used that to my advantage. Like when I've worked with agents who represent celebrities and stuff like that, they because I live in a small town, Grand Haven, Michigan. They assume that you don't work with celebrities or big time talent, right? You know,
right.
And so whenever they ask me who I worked with, I always start with let's start with Teresa, and that tends to shut up the whole conversation down, and we have no more doubts after that.
yeah, no kidding.
No doubt. I mean, there's so many things you can take away from, I don't know what kind of time frame that you spent with her and were able to, just to hear what she had to say. Obviously, you did a commercial with her. What were a few points that you walked away with from that connection?
Yeah, the point in the book that I mentioned is more because the book is written to nonprofit organizations to help them communicate better, right? So that they can raise the support and attention and awareness that they need to do more good, right? And so one key point was when I was talking actually to her handler. So at this time, Mother Teresa was 86 years old, right? And so she had a nun who was her handler, and she was a younger nun. She was 72, right?
Young whippersnapper.
Yeah, you know. And so she asked me kind of what I'm about and how I use my trade, marketing and advertising for good and stuff like that. And I described basically what the concept is of Do More Good. And she looked at me and she said, I get it, Bill. And I'm like, well, sister, do you mind telling me what you get? Because I actually work with a lot of nonprofit executives that when I try to explain these concepts to them, they don't get it. And she said, well, we Mother Teresa and I use a little bit different term. We use the term no margin, no mission.
Mm-hmm.
And what she meant by, I looked at her, I said, man, that's something like a Harvard MBA would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to unpack that a little bit for me? And she said, the fact that Mother Teresa has a heart or had a heart for, the poor, especially in Calcutta, right? And she wanted to feed the hungry and help the poor. That's really what she wanted to do, right? That was the good that she wanted to do. And this sister explained to me that, I happened to be filming here on a day where that evening she was going to a dinner at the White House.
Mm.
And she said, do you think Mother Teresa really wants to travel from Calcutta and leave the poor and the hungry behind to come to some fancy dinner at the White House? No, she doesn't. The reason why she does it is she needs to raise the attention and awareness for the things that she's working on so they get the funds that they need in order to help the people that they want to help, right? So she was telling me, if you don't have margin, if you're not taking in revenue, you're not going to be able to help the people and the things that you say that you want to help. And that's one of the fundamental things about a nonprofit organization is so many of them think that they're the cause, but in reality, they're the conduit. They're the conduit of collecting the funds and raising the awareness in order to help others, right? But a couple of other things that I learned when filming Mother Teresa was, not surprisingly, whenever you asked her a question, I always found it amazing. She never gave you her opinion. She gave you her answer of what Jesus said about the topic, right? She always went back to scripture and she always went back to what Jesus said. And she would then articulate through his words and through his teachings what our position should be on something, right? And even very controversial issues, right?
Yes.
He would just take it right back to scripture. And as a result, there was no argument. It wasn't her opinion. She was following what Christ taught, right? Which was also really amazing. The other thing that I really learned too was when we filmed her, this was back in the days of a 35 millimeter camera, and those are big contraptions. And we had two of those in the room that we were filming her in, and it was intimidating, right? We had 60 people behind two cameras, and she was even. I was told, she was like, "Man, this is a lot of attention. I'm kind of nervous about this, right?"
Yeah.
And so I was the person that opened the door for her to walk in the room, and I don't know why. I just had it in my mind that I would not treat her like a celebrity and stare at her like she was some kind of celebrity. Instead, I chose to, when I opened the door to let her in the room, I just looked at the floor. And so when she walked by me, number one, that thing that struck me was, man, she's a very, very small woman, right?
Mhm.
She was very teeny. But so the first thing that I ever saw of Mother Teresa was actually her feet. And her feet were in sandals and totally exposed, right? And so on one conscious thought that I had, I go, that is maybe the most rugged pair of feet I have ever seen in my entire life.
Right.
But at the same time, it brought tears to my eyes because it was like, that's the feet of somebody who wants to do more good. Right?
Yeah, that's good.
It's walked through stuff that she didn't want to walk through. It's, it's been bared, through a lot of things and had to probably take scrapes and cuts and walk. And again, just ugly situations that those feet have walked through to bring the beauty of Christ to the world is just amazing. Right.
Wow.
So good.
Bill McKendry, the author of Do More Good. Now, I'm getting implicit from the book that that nonprofit organizations that are trying to do good, sometimes they lose sight of what it is they're trying to do. So what made you want to write this book?
Yeah, I mean, so I used to, I started my career working on, a big advertising agency that was based out of New York. I was in their Denver outpost. I worked on things like American Express and Taco Bell and, Dodge cars and stuff like that. And, I learned and cut my teeth on those things and learned how to really communicate at the highest levels possible. Right. And so what I came to the realization is, and I took on a partner that had worked at Leo Burnett and had done 6 years of McDonald's Super Bowl ads, including one of the ads that's still considered one of the most memorable Super Bowl ads ever, which is, Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, nothing but net, right?
Yes.
So we teamed up.
Yeah.
We teamed up as, what actually brought us together and brought us out of the big advertising world is we looked at each other as Christians. And we said, did God make us to sell credit cards, cars and tacos and hamburgers, or did he create us to do something else? And that question burned in our hearts where we looked at each other and said, if we can't serve God as best we can in the current situation, even though we're paid well and we have a lot of fun, what do we need to do as a result? And we looked at each other and said, what kind of agency would Jesus want us to work at? And so we said that the kind of agency that Jesus would want us to work at is the kind of agency that also looks at the situation and says, what's the problem here in this country? And what we realized is we've been responsible in those big agencies of helping to create a nation of consumers, that we were no longer a nation of citizens.
Right.
And the problem with that is that they're competing in the for-profit world for exactly what the nonprofit world and the Christian world need as well. And so a lot of nonprofit organizations and Christian organizations don't recognize that their biggest competitor is not another nonprofit or another Christian organization. Their competitor is the consumer materialistic marketplace, because Taco Bell, McDonald's, Dodge, and American Express, they want your discretionary time and money as much as any nonprofit does.
Yeah.
And so as a result, we said, if the voice of charity and the voice of faith and the voice of human kindness is not competing well in the marketplace for discretionary time and money, this is where we need to invest our talents, right? So we did that in 1994, and in 2021, it sounds like a great idea because there's so many businesses that want to put purpose above everything else, and stand for something greater than profits. But in 1994, we sounded like idiots, right? And people actually, made comments, negative comments that said that we were idealistic and unrealistic, and how could nonprofits possibly compete with Nike and McDonald's? Well, they can. They don't have to outspend them, but they can outsmart them, right? And And the beautiful thing is they have an inherent drama, something to communicate to the world that the world naturally gravitates to. But if you don't tell the world your story, if you don't tell them the differences that you're making, and you don't compete for that discretionary time and money, you're just not going to get your fair share. And so we decided we're going to get in the business of getting faith, human kindness, and charity their fair share of people's discretionary time and money.
That's so good. Bill McKendry, the book is coming out the first of the year, 2022, Do More Good. He's the founder of Do More Good. We got to go to a break here in a second, Bill. But what do you want folks to walk away? Obviously, you're aiming at nonprofits. What about the regular folks that are out there? What can they get out of this book?
Yeah, so nonprofits are made up of leaders, right? But they're also made up of volunteers and board members, and also people who work at a nonprofit. And my goal is that I can equip people with a perspective that allows them to really think differently about how their approach to the market and their approach to donations and their approach to raising the support and attention that they need. And there isn't anybody within a nonprofit organization, from the board to the executive director to a volunteer, that shouldn't read this book and so that they can help their organization do more good.
That's so good. The cap you're wearing, is that from Do More Good?
No, it's actually from another company that I own. It's actually a Gravity 6 Alliance that I'm a part of, but everybody thinks it's the G in Do More Good.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It looks really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
I like that.
Bill McKendry, check out the book. It is domoregood.org. I'd love to talk to you. We'd both love to talk to you after the first of the year, Bill, if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
So we'll just kind of look ahead, see what's going on for you in 2022. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is FaithTalk Live.